He said it plain. I couldn't stand that motherfucker. You hear that, and you picture a rivalry, a grudge, a locker room story that should have ended with a handshake and maybe a fist bump. Instead, it's the opening line to a much bigger tale, not just about two men, but about a team trying to defend a title and a veteran trying to find his best self in a place he once resented. Yahoo Teithao. This matters because it's about more than feelings. The Eagles have already clinched a playoff spot in the NFC East, and every relationship inside that building now shapes a run that could end in another championship. Teams win and lose in the margins, in the details, the habits, the trust. And a moment like this tells you what the locker room really looks like when the lights get hot. PhiladelphiaEagles.com. Quick context. Saquon Barkley, a star back who's carried both expectations and a massive workload, used to face Nick Sirianni as an opponent. He made that blunt line about not liking Sirianni in a public moment, and the sound of it stuck because it felt honest, almost raw. Fans loved it for the drama. Media ran it for the shock. But the truth is more tangled than a viral soundbite. Yahoo Teithao, here's the thread I want you to hold on to. Beneath the headline of, I couldn't stand him, there's a slow, quiet conversion happening. And the reason that conversion matters won't be obvious and pull back the curtain on what Barkley actually saw when he stepped inside the Eagles' bubble. Stick with me. By the time I explain that, the whole idea of this team's identity changes. When you watch Barkley on tape this season, the cuts, the vision, the burst, you see a player who's hungry to belong to something that lasts. He's not chasing a highlight, he's fitting into a system. That system, it's shaped by a coach who, to outsiders, looks eccentric, obsessive about small things, furious about fundamentals, relentless in pursuit of a very specific standard. And whether you loved the coach when you were across from him or not, the data is starting to show the results of that obsession. Wikipedia. Now let's get honest about the stakes. This is a team defending a championship. Repeat champions are rare in modern football because the league is designed to stop dynasties, injuries, parity, economics. The Eagles' current run, back-to-back division titles, playoff berth locked, didn't happen by accident. It's the result of an organizational posture that tolerates no laziness. That posture is Nick Sirianni's calling card, and if Barkley's voice is the one that admits it aloud, that matters way more than a viral quote. Bleeding Green Nation. Here's the turning point in this story, the moment the narrative flips from grudge to alignment. After Barkley joined the Eagles, he didn't just attend meetings, he watched. He lived the day-to-day, practice shots, walkthroughs, the obsession with alignment and timing that Sirianni pushes. He watched Hard Knocks and reality TV-style clips, and he said what a lot of outsiders assumed but couldn't see up close, that the TV doesn't capture the real work. It only hints at it. The real work is smaller, repeated, and almost invisible. PhiladelphiaEagles.com. So what changed? Barkley says he wasn't a fan, and that's the clean part of the story. The messy, important part is how that hardened feeling softened. He began to see the obsession as purpose, the nitpicking as craft. He watched Sirianni's obsession with little things make big things happen. A running lane open because of a 5-yard shift at the line, a third down stop because someone slid a half step at the snap, a season preserved because meticulous practice eliminated sloppy mistakes. Those micro moments compound into championships. PhiladelphiaEagles.com. Let's put it another way. Imagine your boss was once the person you rolled your eyes at. Then imagine you start to see why that boss is relentless, and you realize his relentlessness gave your team a ring. That's the mental pivot Barkley is talking about. It's not a Hollywood reconciliation scene. It's a professional awakening, the kind of realization that changes how a player prepares, how he talks to teammates, how he treats practice. It's subtle, but in a sport measured by inches, it's everything. The human element here is worth dwelling on. Barkley's candor, I couldn't stand that motherfucker, is a rare dose of rawness from a player who knows how narratives stick. He said it, and then he added something else that's quieter, but more consequential. He's happy that he's our head coach. That sentence rewrites the original headline. It signals ownership, a decision to believe in the culture rather than hold on to an old grievance. PhiladelphiaEagles.com. Where it gets interesting for opponents is this. A player like Barkley buying fully into a system elevates him beyond individual talent. It makes him a partner in the design. Barkley's numbers this season, the heavy carries, the consistent gains, are the statistical echo of that alignment. When your best players start agreeing with your coach on process, you don't just get good games, you get sustained excellence. Reuters. So what does this mean for the Eagles' title defense? It means they're not merely leaning on star power. They're leaning on a culture that keeps stars in line and focused. Sirianni's track record, consecutive playoff appearances, division crowns, and a Super Bowl title in recent seasons, isn't an accident. It's evidence that this coach's methods, however quirky or polarizing they seem, work when the locker room commits. Wikipedia. And there's a final, softer note. Barkley's arc here matters because it's not just about a player and a coach. It's about how teams evolve. The best leaders convert skeptics into disciples, not with speeches, but with standards. Barkley's conversion is a proof point, a veteran admitting that his prior judgment was premature and that the details he once scorned are the ones that win championships. So where do we end? Not with a tidy wrap-up. The bigger question now is whether this cultural glue can withstand the late-season pressure, injuries, matchup hell, and the strange luck of playoff football. Barkley's public about-face is encouraging, but it's not a guarantee. Will the obsession that convinced him be enough when the games get meaner? Can the Eagles keep the margin tiny and the focus constant through the playoffs? That's the unresolved tension. A locker room now aligned, but an NFL postseason that punishes the slightest slip. If Barkley's shift is the signal it appears to be, the Eagles are built to defend their crown. If it's only a soundtrack to another regular season highlight, everything still hangs in the balance. Which is exactly why this story, a quote that started as a punchline and turned into a portrait of belief, matters more than the viral moment ever did. He said it plain, "I couldn't stand that motherfucker." You hear that, and you picture a rivalry, a grudge, a locker room story that should have ended with a handshake and maybe a fist bump. Instead, it's the opening line to a much bigger tale, not just about two men, but about a team trying to defend a title and a veteran trying to find his best self in a place he once resented. Yahoo Thethau. This matters because it's about more than feelings. The Eagles have already clinched a playoff spot in the NFC East, and every relationship inside that building now shapes a run that could end in another championship. Teams win and lose in the margins, in the details, the habits, the trust. And a moment like this tells you what the locker room really looks like when the lights get hot. PhiladelphiaEagles.com. Quick context. Saquon Barkley, a star back who's carried both expectations and a massive workload, used to face Nick Sirianni as an opponent. He made that blunt line about not liking Sirianni